The Galactic Council chamber stretched 500 meters in diameter, a cathedral of polished obsidian and floating crystalline platforms. Ambassador Marcus Chen stood alone at the center, hands clasped behind his back, watching thousands of alien eyes study him like a specimen under glass. The Valkyrie representative rose first, its 6 insectoid limbs clicking against the podium. Its translator rendered the chittering sounds into cold, mechanical words. Humanity stands accused of violating Galactic Preservation Law 47. You have colonized 12 protected worlds without authorization. You have extracted resources from quarantine systems. You have ignored 17 cease and desist orders. Marcus kept his face neutral. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 43 species whispered among themselves. The Thalan floated in their water tanks, bioluminescent patterns flickering across their translucent bodies. The Krovan delegation sat in their heated section, steam rising from their stone-like skin. The Emiri hung from the ceiling, their bat-like wings folded, red eyes gleaming. "How do you respond?" the Valkyrie demanded. "We respond," Marcus said clearly, his voice amplified throughout the chamber, "that humanity was never informed these worlds were protected. We received no welcome package when we achieved faster-than-light travel. No guidebook. No map of forbidden territories." A Thalan representative pulsed bright orange, the color of contempt. "Ignorance is not innocence, human. Every species that joins galactic civilization learns the rules first. You should have waited." "Waited for what?" Marcus asked. "We sent first contact requests for 30 years. We broadcast on every frequency. We placed beacons at the edge of our solar system. Nobody answered. Because you were being evaluated," High Chancellor Vornik announced. The massive Krovan stood 12 feet tall, his voice like grinding stones. "As is protocol with all primitive species. You failed the evaluation." The chamber erupted in approval. Clicking, chirping, howling, and humming filled the air as species voiced their agreement. Marcus felt sweat trickle down his spine, but he kept his expression calm. "On what grounds did we fail?" Vornik's massive hand slammed down on his podium, cracking the stone. "Your species is aggressive. Territorial. You wage wars among yourselves. Your history is written in blood. In the 300 years since you left your cradle world, you have fought 17 conflicts with each other. Colonial disputes. Resource wars. Political violence." "That's correct," Marcus admitted. "And in those same 300 years, we've lifted 8 billion people out of poverty. We've cured 400 diseases. We've built cities on 27 worlds. We've created art, music, literature, and scientific advancements that mean nothing," the Valkyrie interrupted, "compared to your violence. The Council has made its decision." Marcus's stomach dropped. They hadn't even deliberated. This wasn't a trial. It was theater. Vornik gestured, and a holographic projection materialized above the chamber floor. It showed a region of space that looked wrong. Stars flickered and died at the edges. Nebulae swirled in sickly colors. Space itself seemed to tear and buckle. "This is the dead zone," Vornik declared. "A region of space approximately 50 light-years in diameter, created by the collapse of an ancient civilization's dimension drive. The laws of physics are unstable there. Radiation levels are lethal. Gravity wells shift without warning. Time flows incorrectly in some sectors." Marcus stared at the projection. He'd heard rumors of the dead zone. Every spacer had ghost stories about ships that wandered too close and were never seen again. 73 species have been banished to the dead zone over the past 12,000 years, Vornik continued. For crimes against galactic peace. For violations of sacred law. For refusing to submit to council authority. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Not one has ever returned. Not one has ever survived longer than 6 months. The chamber fell silent. "You're going to kill us all," Marcus said quietly. "We are removing a dangerous element from civilized space," the Valkyrie corrected. "There is a difference. If your species is as adaptable and resilient as you claim, perhaps you will prove us wrong. Perhaps you will be the first to survive." "You don't believe that," Marcus said. "No," Vornik agreed. "We do not. Humanity is hereby sentenced to exile. You have 1 standard galactic month to evacuate all colonies and return to your home system. After that, you will be escorted to the dead zone. Any human vessel found in civilized space after that deadline will be destroyed without warning." Marcus looked around the chamber at the assembled species. Some looked satisfied. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked indifferent. "You're making a mistake," Marcus said. "That remains to be seen," Voynich replied. This council is adjourned. The platforms began to descend, carrying the alien delegates away. Within minutes, Marcus stood alone in the vast chamber, the hologram of the dead zone still rotating above him, its twisted stars casting strange shadows across the floor. He pulled out his communicator and contacted Earth. They sentenced us, he said simply. We have 30 days. The city of New Geneva on Kepler 442b burned across the horizon, towers of steel and glass reflecting the orange light of twin suns. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood on the landing pad of the evacuation center, watching the long lines of humanity shuffle toward the transport ships. Families carried whatever they could. Children clutched toys. Old men and women moved slowly, confused by the sudden upheaval. Some cried. Others wore expressions of blank shock. How many have we processed? Sarah asked. Her aide, Lieutenant Park, checked his tablet. 422,000 from this city alone. 12 million across the planet. But we have 43 colony worlds, Admiral. 87 million people spread across civilized space. We can't get them all out in 30 days. Sarah watched a young girl drop her stuffed animal. A soldier picked it up and handed it back to her. The girl smiled and Sarah felt her heart break a little. We'll get as many as we can, she said. What's the status of our military assets? The fleet is converging on Seoul, Park reported. 470 warships. Another 300 support vessels. We managed to hide about 30 ships in deep space stations before the Council started tracking our movements. Small vessels. Scouts and corvettes mostly. Good, Sarah said. We'll need every advantage we can get. A commotion erupted near one of the transport ships. Sarah walked over quickly. Two men were arguing, shoving each other. Security moved to intervene. What's happening? Sarah demanded. One of the men, middle-aged with desperate eyes, grabbed her arm. My wife is on the manifest for the next ship, but they won't let me board with her. They say this transport is full. Please, Admiral, don't separate us. Sarah looked at the transport ship. It was overloaded already, designed for 2,000 passengers but carrying at least 3,000. She could see faces pressed against every window. Put him on the next ship, Sarah told the security team. And make sure his wife knows he's coming. I don't want anyone thinking their family got left behind. The man thanked her profusely. Sarah moved on, trying not to think about all the problems she couldn't personally solve. Her communicator buzzed. It was General Chin, Marcus's brother, from the military command center. Admiral, we have a situation, his voice crackled. 3 Valkyrie warships just appeared at the edge of the system. They're broadcasting a warning that we're exceeding our evacuation time window for this planet. Sarah checked her chronometer. We still have 6 days left in the global deadline. They're claiming local deadlines now. Changing the rules as they go. They want us out of this system within 48 hours or they'll start confiscating our ships. Sarah felt rage burn in her chest, but she forced it down. Rage wouldn't help anyone. Are they in weapons range? Negative. They're staying at the system's edge. Watching. Then we ignore them, Sarah decided. We load every ship to maximum capacity and we leave when we're ready, not when they tell us. If they want to start a war over 2 days, let them fire the first shot. Understood, Admiral. Sarah ended the call and looked back at the evacuation center. The line of humanity seemed endless. She thought about the 73 species that had been banished before. How many of them had stood like this, watching their people file toward an uncertain doom? A hand touched her shoulder. She turned to find Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the colony's chief scientist and one of Sarah's oldest friends. You shouldn't be here, Sarah said. You should be on a ship already. Your research is too valuable. Yuki smiled sadly. My research was about terraforming desert worlds to make them habitable. That's not going to help us in the dead zone. She held up a data chip. But I've been compiling everything we know about that region. Every sensor reading, every failed expedition, every ghost story. It's not much. It's more than nothing, Sarah said, taking the chip. Thank you. Sarah, Yuki said quietly, do you think we can survive this? Sarah looked at her friend. She could lie. She could offer false comfort. But Yuki deserved the truth. I don't know, Sarah admitted. But I know we're going to try. That's what humans do. We try even when it seems impossible. We adapt even when the universe says we can't. And if we die... She paused, choosing her words carefully. If we die, we'll make sure the galaxy remembers that we didn't go quietly. Yuki nodded. I can live with that. Above them, another transport ship lifted off, engines screaming, carrying 3,000 souls toward an uncertain future. The exodus had begun and there was no turning back. The dead zone waited. The fleet gathered at the edge of Sol system like a cloud of metal and determination. 700 ships of various sizes formed a convoy around the massive generation ships that carried humanity's civilians. Each vessel bore the scars of hasty retrofitting, additional armor welded on, weapon systems hastily installed, shield generators pushed beyond their original specifications. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the UHSF Defiance, a battle cruiser that had seen action in the colonial wars. His crew worked silently at their stations, professional despite the fear everyone felt. Final count. James asked. 74 million evacuated, his executive officer Commander Lisa Torres reported. 13 million couldn't be reached in time. Remote colonies, deep space stations, people who refused to leave their homes. James closed his eyes briefly. 13 million people left behind to face the Council's justice, which wouldn't be justice at all. It would be extermination. Status of the escort fleet? High Chancellor Vornik's armada is maintaining position at the designated coordinates, Torres said. 200 warships. They're here to make sure we actually go into the dead zone and don't try to run elsewhere. James looked at the view screen showing the Krovan vessels. They were massive, brutal things, designed for intimidation as much as combat. Vornik wanted humanity to feel small. All ships report ready for transit, Torres continued. Admiral Okonkwo sends her regards and says to keep our heads up. Tell her the same, James replied. The fleet began to move, a slow procession toward the region of space that had consumed 73 civilizations before them. As they traveled, James studied the sensor readings of the dead zone. The data was disturbing. Space-time itself was fractured there. Gravity wells appeared and disappeared randomly. Radiation storms swept through without warning. Most disturbing were the temporal anomalies, regions where time moved faster or slower than normal space, where cause and effect sometimes reversed. We're approaching the boundary, Torres announced. James activated fleet-wide communications. All ships, this is Captain Walker. In approximately 10 minutes, we will cross into the dead zone. I won't lie to you, this is going to be the hardest thing humanity has ever faced. But I want you to remember something. We're not the first species to face impossible odds. We're just the first that's going to beat them. He paused, letting his words sink in. Every department, every crew, every single person in this fleet has a role to play. Follow your training. Trust your officers. Watch out for each other. And remember that 74 million people are counting on us to get them through this alive. He took a breath. We didn't choose this exile. But we'll damn sure choose how we face it. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the vacuum of space itself. We'll survive this too. All ships prepare for zone entry. Humanity doesn't quit. Not now. Not ever. The responses came back from hundreds of captains, a chorus of determination that filled James with fierce pride. The Valkyrie escort fleet broadcast one final message. You are now entering the dead zone. Galactic law prohibits your return to civilized space under penalty of immediate destruction. Your sentence begins now. Cheerful bastards, Torres muttered. The first ships crossed the boundary. For a moment nothing happened. Then the sensors went haywire. Multiple gravity anomalies detected, the science officer shouted. Radiation levels spiking across 17 different spectrums. Spatial distortions at coordinates. Everywhere. They're everywhere. The view screen showed what instruments could barely comprehend. Stars bent at wrong angles. Nebulae swirled in impossible colors, shades that hurt to look at. Space rippled like water, and through the ripples James could see glimpses of things that shouldn't exist. Maintain formation, he ordered. All ships activate enhanced shielding. The generation ship Exodus suddenly lurched sideways, caught in a gravity well that appeared from nowhere. James watched in horror as the massive vessel, carrying 8 million people, spun toward a spatial rift that looked like a wound in reality itself. Defiance new course. Full thrust. Get us between Exodus and that anomaly. The bridge crew scrambled to comply. The Defiance's engines screamed as the ship accelerated, positioning itself as a shield. The gravity well pulled at them, threatening to tear the ship apart, but James held course. Deploy gravity anchors. Lock onto Exodus and pull her out. Magnetic tethers shot from the Defiance, connecting to the generation ship. The strain gauges redlined as both vessels fought against the anomaly's pull. For 10 terrifying seconds, it could have gone either way. Then the gravity well collapsed as suddenly as it had appeared. The exodus stabilized safe. That was 3 minutes into the dead zone, Torres said quietly. James looked at the sensor readings showing the chaos ahead of them. Send a message to all ships. Welcome to hell. Now let's figure out how to survive it. The human fleet carved out a pocket of relative stability in a region where 3 spatial anomalies created a buffer zone against the worst distortions. They called it Haven, though the name was optimistic at best. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the science bay of the research vessel Newton, staring at holographic displays that showed impossible data. She'd been studying the dead zone for 4 weeks now, and every discovery made less sense than the last. Run the simulation again, she told her assistant, Dr. Ravi Sharma. The hologram showed a model of local spacetime. It looked like shattered glass with cracks running in every direction. Physics worked differently in each fractured section. I've run it 17 times, Ravi said tiredly. The results don't change. The dead zone isn't just damaged space. It's collapsing space. Whatever technology the ancient civilization used, it didn't just break the laws of physics. It made them optional. Elena rubbed her temples. But things do work here. Ships function. Life support operates. Our biology hasn't stopped working. Because we're imposing order on chaos, Ravi explained. Our ships create bubbles of normal spacetime around them. Our technology forces physics to behave. But step outside those bubbles. He didn't need to finish. They'd lost 3 scout ships in the first week. Good people who'd flown too far from the fleet, whose ships' protective fields had failed for just seconds. The rescue teams had found the wreckage later, twisted into shapes that geometry said shouldn't exist. Elena's communicator buzzed. Admiral Okonkwo wanted her on the command ship. 20 minutes later, Elena entered the war room aboard the carrier UHSF Indomitable. The senior leadership of humanity's military and civilian government had assembled around a massive holographic table. Admiral Okonkwo stood at the head, her uniform crisp despite 4 weeks of hell. Beside her stood Premier David Morrison, elected leader of humanity's civilian government. General Chin represented ground forces. Captain Walker and a dozen other ship commanders filled out the room. Thank you for coming, Dr. Vasquez, Sarah said. We need your assessment. Can humanity survive long-term in the dead zone? Elena looked at the assembled leaders, seeing the hope and fear they tried to hide. She could lie. She could soften the truth. No, she said simply. Not as we are now. The room fell silent. Our ship's protective fields are constantly fighting against spatial distortions, Elena continued. We're using 3 times the normal energy just to maintain basic operations. Our fuel reserves will last maybe 8 months at this rate. After that, systems will start failing. When the protective fields go down, anyone caught outside will be exposed to conditions that will kill them in ways I can't even properly describe. So we're dead, Captain Walker said flatly. Just on a delayed timer. I didn't say that, Elena replied. I said we can't survive as we are now. But humans have always been good at adapting. She activated her own holographic display, showing complex technical schematics. The ancient civilization that created this zone had technology far beyond ours. But I've been analyzing the wreckage of their structures we found floating in the zone. Their ships didn't fight against the distortions, they used them. They built technology that worked with the broken physics instead of against it. General Chin leaned forward. You're saying we need to completely redesign our technology? Yes, Elena confirmed. And quickly. We need to stop thinking like we're visiting a dangerous place and start thinking like we're adapting to a new home. Because that's what this is now. Home. Premier Morrison spoke for the first time. How long would this adaptation take? With our current resources? Decades. Maybe centuries. Elena paused. But I have an idea that might speed things up. It's dangerous. Possibly insane. But it could work. We're listening, Sarah said. Elena took a breath. The spatial distortions aren't random. They follow patterns, just not patterns from normal physics. I think, and this is just a theory, but I think the zone is trying to stabilize itself. It's been 12,000 years since it was created. The worst damage is healing. Slowly. Incredibly slowly. What are you suggesting? Walker asked. We help it heal, Elena said. We use our technology to reinforce the stabilization process. Create anchors that spread normal spacetime into the distorted regions. It's like stitching reality back together. And the risk? Sarah asked. If we fail, we could make the distortions worse. We could create a cascade that destroys the entire zone and us with it. Or we could trigger a collapse that spreads beyond the zone into normal space. The room was silent as everyone processed this. "You're talking about potentially destroying part of the galaxy," General Chin said slowly. "I'm talking about saving humanity," Elena corrected. "Those are the stakes. We do nothing and die slowly. Or we try something impossible and maybe, just maybe, we survive." Sarah looked around the room at her advisors, then back to Elena. "Start the project," she ordered. "We didn't come this far to die quietly." 17 light-years away, at the edge of the dead zone, High Chancellor Vornik's personal dreadnought maintained its patient vigil. The massive Krovan stood in his observation chamber, watching the swirling chaos of the zone through reinforced windows. "Any signals from the humans?" he asked. His communications officer, a slender Thalan floating in his portable water tank, pulsed negative. "Nothing for 31 standard days. The zone's radiation interferes with long-range scans, but we've detected no escape attempts." "They're all dead by now," said Ambassador Kresh, a Valkyrie who'd attached himself to Vornik's ship. 73 species before them proved that the zone is unsurvivable. The humans were arrogant to think they'd be different. Vornik said nothing. He'd been a soldier for 300 years, fighting in 20 conflicts across the galaxy. He'd learned to respect his enemies even, especially, the defeated ones. And something about the humans troubled him. "Show me the historical data on previous exiles," he commanded. A holographic display materialized, showing graphs and timelines. Every species banished to the dead zone had followed the same pattern. Initial panic. Desperate attempts to escape. Increasing radiation signatures as their ship's systems failed. Then silence, usually within 90 to 180 days. "The humans are at 31 days, Vornik mused. "Still early. But they should be showing signs of system failure by now. Instead, their energy signatures are stable. Different from when they entered, but stable." "Impossible," Kresh clicked. "The zone drains power exponentially. They must be rationing, shutting down non-essential systems. The readings are probably sporadic signals from dying ships." "Maybe," Vornik allowed. But his combat instinct said otherwise. "Chancellor," his tactical officer interrupted, "we have company. A Galactic Council inspection vessel just entered the system." Vornik recognized the ship. It belonged to Counselor Theron, a pompous Emiri who'd been one of humanity's harshest critics during the trial. Within the hour, Theron arrived on the dreadnought. The Emiri hung upside down from a ceiling perch, his leathery wings folded, red eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "I've come to verify the humans' extinction," Theron announced. "The Council wishes to reclaim any salvageable technology from their vessels." "They've only been in the zone for 31 days, Vornik said. "More than enough time," Theron replied. "The longest any species has survived was the Draker, at 173 days. And they were far more advanced than humans. These primitives are certainly dead already." "We should wait," Vornik suggested. "Give it the full 6 months. Be certain." Theron's ears twitched with annoyance. "What? Afraid of ghosts, Chancellor? Or perhaps you've grown fond of the humans during your vigil?" Vornik felt his stone-like skin heat with anger, but he controlled it. "I'm being thorough. A quality that has kept me alive for 3 centuries. And a quality that wastes the Council's time," Theron countered. "I will report that you've grown soft. Perhaps it's time for a younger, more decisive Krovan to lead the Council's military forces." It was a clear threat. Vornik knew the politics. Theron had allies on the Council who wanted him removed. This human situation had become ammunition. "Very well," Vornik said coldly. "Prepare a probe. We'll send it into the zone to verify the human status." "Excellent," Theron said, satisfied. The probe was launched an hour later, a heavily shielded automated vessel designed to survive in the zone long enough to gather data. It crossed the boundary and immediately began transmitting. At first the readings made sense. Radiation levels matched expectations. Spatial distortions were severe. The probe navigated carefully, following pre-programmed paths toward where the human fleet had last been detected. Then the readings changed. "Chancellor," the sensor officer said, confused, "I'm detecting structures. Artificial structures. Inside the zone." "Show me," Vornik commanded. The holographic display showed sensor data that shouldn't exist. Metallic constructs, dozens of them, arranged in a geometric pattern. They were emitting energy fields that seemed to push back against the spatial distortions, creating pockets of stable space. "What are those?" Theron demanded. "I don't know," Vornik admitted. "But they're human in design. I recognize the configuration." The probe moved closer. Its cameras captured images that left everyone in the command center speechless. The human fleet had changed. Their ships were no longer the same vessels that had entered the zone. They'd been modified, rebuilt, covered in strange crystalline structures that glowed with an internal light. Between the ships stretched networks of energy tethers, creating a web that held space-time together like stitches in fabric. And at the center of it all, the massive generation ships were no longer just surviving. They were thriving. Impossible, Theron whispered. They should be dead. They should all be dead. Vornik watched the images with a growing sense of unease. The humans weren't just surviving the dead zone. They were mastering it. Open a channel, he ordered. Let's see if they'll talk to us. Are you insane? Kresh objected. Contact with exiled species is forbidden. So is entering the dead zone, Vornik replied. But we need to know what we're dealing with. Because I have a feeling the humans are about to surprise us all. Marcus Chen stood in the communication center of the generation ship Unity, watching technicians work frantically at their consoles. His hair had gone gray in the past 5 months and he'd lost weight from the rationing, but his eyes still held that same stubborn fire. Confirmed, the chief technician said. There's a probe broadcasting a council hailing frequency. They're asking to establish communication. After 5 months of silence, now they want to talk, Marcus said bitterly. What changed? Dr. Vasquez entered the room, her tablet displaying real-time readings from their network of reality anchors. They saw what we've built. They're scared. Good, Marcus replied. They should be. Can we reach them through the zone's interference? Barely, the technician said. Signal will be degraded, but it'll get through. Do we respond? Marcus considered. Every instinct said to ignore them, to let the council wonder and worry. But Elena was right, they were scared. And scared enemies made mistakes. Open the channel, he decided. Let's see what they want. The holographic communicator flickered to life, showing High Chancellor Vornik's massive stone-like face. Behind him, Marcus could see other aliens watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. Ambassador Chin, Vornik rumbled. You're alive. Disappointed? Marcus asked coldly. Surprised, Vornik admitted. Your species has accomplished what 73 others could not. You've survived the dead zone. Survived. Marcus laughed, and there was an edge to it that made several aliens on the feet step back. Chancellor, we've done more than survive. We've adapted. We've thrived. We've turned your death sentence into our salvation. That's impossible, a Emiri voice interjected. Counselor Theron. The zone is unstable. Nothing can truly live there. Nothing you understand, Elena said, stepping into frame. But then, you never tried to understand. You just used it as a dumping ground for species you feared. Feared? Theron scoffed. We feared your violence, your aggression. You feared our potential, Marcus interrupted. You saw how quickly we advanced, how we adapted to every challenge, and you realized that in a few centuries we might surpass you. So you sentenced us to death and called it justice. Silence from the other end of the transmission. What do you want? Vornik asked finally. What? Marcus smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. We want you to leave us alone. We want you to remember that humanity doesn't die easily. And we want you to know that the dead zone isn't dead anymore. What do you mean? Vornik demanded. Elena pulled up data on her tablet, transmitting it through the channel. See for yourself. We've been mapping the zone's structure, understanding its patterns. The spatial distortions aren't random. They're remnants of a reality-warping weapon used 12,000 years ago. The zone has been slowly healing itself all this time. We've just accelerated the process. The data showed a three-dimensional model of the dead zone. At its center, around the human fleet, spacetime had stabilized. The effect was spreading outward, slowly but measurably. You're healing it? Kresh, the Valkyrie, sounded shocked. How? Technology adapted from the ancient civilization that created it, Elena explained. Combined with human ingenuity and a willingness to work with broken physics instead of against it. In another year, we'll have stabilized a region 10 light-years in diameter. In 5 years, 20 light-years. In a century, the entire zone will be habitable space. And it will belong to humanity, Marcus added quietly. The implications hung in the air. The dead zone was 50 light-years in diameter, a region of space larger than most stellar nations. If humans truly could make it habitable, they would control a massive territory right in the middle of galactic civilization. The Council will never allow this, Theron said. You'll what? Marcus interrupted. Send your fleets into the zone? Good luck. The distortions will tear you apart. You don't have the technology to survive here. We do. You made this our home, Chancellor. Now we own it. Vornik studied Marcus for a long moment. You've changed, Ambassador. 5 months in hell has made you harder. 5 months of fighting to keep 74 million people alive will do that, Marcus replied. We buried 12,000 dead in the first month. People killed by anomalies, by accidents, by exposure when systems failed. We mourned them. Then we learned from their deaths. We adapted. That's what humans do. What happens now? Vornik asked. Now you go back to your council and tell them humanity isn't extinct. Tell them we're building something unprecedented in this zone. Tell them that in a few generations human ships will emerge from the dead zone with technology they can't imagine. And tell them. Marcus paused, his expression hard. Tell them that we remember what they did to us. We'll never forget. And we'll never forgive. That sounds like a threat, Theron said nervously. No, Marcus corrected. It's a promise. Humanity survived banishment to the dead zone. Nothing else ever had. Remember that. He cut the transmission. The room fell silent until Elena spoke. That was quite a performance. Think they believed you? They believed enough of it, Marcus said. And the rest? We'll make it true. 3 years later the dead zone was no longer dead. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Defiance, now completely rebuilt with hybrid human ancient technology. The ship looked alien compared to its original design, covered in crystalline structures that glowed with soft blue light. But it was faster, stronger, and deadlier than any vessel humanity had built before the exile. Status report, she commanded. Commander Torres, promoted and seasoned by 3 years of impossible challenges, consulted her displays. All fleet elements in position. 600 combat vessels, fully upgraded. 200 support ships. 8 generation ships providing mobile bases. And our latest addition, the reality anchors online and holding steady. Sarah looked at the view screen showing the massive structures they'd built. Giant crystalline towers floating in space, each one maintaining a bubble of stable reality. They'd constructed hundreds of them throughout the zone, creating a network of safe passage and habitable space. Population? Sarah asked. 73,900,000, Torres reported. We've had births, deaths, and we found 4 colony ships that were supposed to evacuate but got caught in the Council's blockade. They limped into the zone 6 months ago. We saved them. Sarah nodded. Every life saved felt like a victory against the Council's death sentence. Signal from the Unity, Torres continued. Ambassador Chin is ready. Put him through. Marcus's face appeared on screen. 3 years had aged him, but there was a strength there that hadn't existed before. The dead zone had forged humanity's leadership into something harder, sharper. Today's the day, Marcus said. Are you ready, Admiral? I was born ready, Sarah replied. The question is, are they ready for us? I guess we'll find out. Beginning broadcast now. Marcus's message went out on every frequency, powerful enough to reach beyond the dead zone into civilized space. Every species in the galaxy would hear it. People of the Galactic Council, Marcus began. 3 years ago you sentenced humanity to death. You exiled us to the dead zone, confident that we would perish like the 73 species before us. You were wrong. The broadcast included images of human cities built on artificial platforms in stable regions of the zone. Of children playing in parks under protective domes. Of farms and factories and schools. Of life persisting against impossible odds. Humanity has not just survived, we have flourished. We have turned your dumping ground into our home. We have mastered technology you thought lost to time. And now we return to galactic civilization not as exiles begging for forgiveness, but as a sovereign nation claiming our rightful place among the stars. The image shifted to show the human fleet, impressive and alien in design. We are establishing permanent borders for the dead zone, which we now declare human exclus.